Well, hello, and welcome back to another scary episode of Ghost Stories Told from the South. I am your host, Stephen LeBooth, and I got some skilly stuff for you today, boys and girls. Well, ma'am, hope y'all enjoyed the 200th episode. Just want to say thank you for all the love and support y'all have given me. I cannot tell you enough how humble and just blessed I am. So just keep on telling your friends about it. Keep letting my podcast grow like it's going, guys. So I'm ready for another 200 more episodes. You guys have really made a little old country boy feel special. Because it's like I said, man, I do this out of my house. I don't have any advertisements. I don't make any money off of this at all. I just do it for fun. And I love it, love it. Just want to say thank you guys for supporting me, and just, it's awesome. Don't forget to go check out my Facebook page and the YouTube channel too. But with that being said, just like I said, I can't thank you guys enough. You guys are awesome. So, we'll get back on to our regular stuff now. We're going to just go back to covering just all sorts of stuff like we did before, guys. All right. Let me get I didn't put my bifocals on. Let me get my other glasses. Okay. All right. That's a lot better. All right. Our first story is the Elders Artist Lofts in Houston, Texas. Okay. It sounds like something out of a bad horror movie, but it's based on all too verifiable facts. Within the confidence of the fourth largest city in the United States, there is a haunted hospital with a history like no other. An old Houston haunted hospital, a beautiful four-story red brick structure with all the furnaces that the early 200th century acquires. This hospital spent the majority of its existence in various states of disarray and abandonment. Some would say that it is due to the unique nature of the urban expansion Houston faced throughout the 20th century. But there are others who suggested other darker reasons. It may be the stories of strange encounters and mysterious screams, or the presence of eerie figures found in places that do not belong. But Jefferson Davis Hospital has also had its share of creepy stories. As with any place of death, most hospitals have their share of spirits and specters. But there's something about Jefferson Davis that's always made it stand out from the rest when it comes to the pure creepiness. Possibly the thousands of disturbed graves that lie mere feet beneath its foundations. Here is a history of the place. Before the hospital broke ground, the empty land where Jefferson Davis now stands was converted into a municipal cemetery in the 1840s. In the intentions of replacing the old city cemetery, it soon became home to an electus mix of the city's dead from all walks of life, from Confederate soldiers to former slaves and even city politicians. When the outbreak of yellow fever and cholera swept through the city, the cemetery was used to stem the tide of bodies from the city, and all told, well over 60,000 people were buried on that site until the city formally discontinued its status as an active cemetery in 1879. Through private families still handled burials on site until well into the 1890s. By the early 20th century, the cemetery was in such hard state of disarray, and Houston politicians began to debating whether or not its land could be used for alternative purposes. In the 1920s, it was determined that the best course of action would be to build a hospital on the hallowed ground in the intent of providing affordable aid to the city's indigent population. Naturally, this decision was met with a far amount of skepticism and uproar over the disrupting our grave sites. Excuse me. Excuse me again. Sorry about that. Promises were made that all of the graves would be moved respectably off site to the concerns of the local citizens and family members. But business developers nearby the land into their other projects still found graves into the 1980s. Oh my God. See, this is what happens back then. People, and even nowadays, people get money in their head, and when they're supposed to move these graves like they're supposed to, they don't. They just move the headstones and leave the bodies, so that's what they're still dealing with. Okay, in the 80s, intended to many that this location remains the final resting place of many Houston's dead. Nonetheless, construction proceeded in 1924 into 1925. Jefferson Davis Hospital was named as a means of consoling the family members of Confederate dead who were buried on these grounds. It was opened. The first city-owned hospital that welcomed an indigent population. It was no doubt hoped that Jefferson Hospital would long remain a Houston fixture. Unfortunately, that was not meant to be. With Houston's rapid metropolitan expansion, Jefferson's Hospital was unable to keep up with the growth of the city's population. By 1938, medical services were rerouted to what is now known as the Texas Medical Center, where Jefferson Davis fell by the wayside. In the decades that followed, Houston tried to find a use for the building, but purposely rarely stuck around for long. By the 1980s, the Jefferson Hospital was abandoned and left to rot, becoming an icon urban blight and a haven for gangs and the homeless, even appearing as a drug lab in the film RoboCop 2. Though there were some rumblings over the years of doing something to renovate what was once the beautiful Houston landmark, little mention was gained until 2003, when a group of teenagers on a ghost hunt at Jefferson Davis Hospital were shot and robbed by local criminals. After being declared a city landmark, the main hospital building was purchased and developed into the Elder Street Artist Lofts in 2005. Though it has gone through its ups and downs over the years. The restored Jefferson Hospital building remains a beautiful sight and a classic piece of Houston history that demands to be seen by all visitors to the city, living and ghostly. Here are some of the ghost reports. Did y'all hear that? I was getting a little drink. Of course, with the history as colorful as this, there are definitely some stories and speculations of haunting. Nearly everyone in town has heard a story from a friend of a friend about mysterious going-ons at the Jefferson Davidson Hospital, as it allowed as its hollowed grounds did make it popular. Halloween did make it a popular Halloween destination for teens during the years when it was abandoned. But just because it has the reputation does not mean that there haven't been complaining tales over the years. The stories of unearthly happenings go back to when Jefferson Davidson Hospital was active in serving the public with doctors, nurses, patients, reporting a variety of mysterious going-ons. Strange pale figures were not an oncoming were Strange pale figures were not an uncommon sight. Nor were mysterious crying, wailing sounds believed to be the upset spirits of the disturbed graves beneath the hospital. Once the hospital was abandoned, reports of paranormal remained unabated, with those who wandered the abandoned building often telling stories of strange noises and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Given the increased frequency of its reports in the years after the hospital's closure to the public, it is speculated by many that those who died in the hospital building only added to the robust ghost population brought on by the cemetery. A theory few are ready to consider true. Stories from the connected prohibition building. Oh, probation building includes strange noises in the attic and a ghostly woman seen wandering what used to be the old nursing quarters, sometimes entering the restrooms, but never seen walking out of them. During one incident in which a fire alarm was reported in the building, it is said that the normal stolen police dogs sent in response refused to enter the building for unknown reasons. Basically, the cops got there and they sent the canine unit in there, and the dogs wouldn't even go in its place. They were like, mm-mm. At the end of the day, the former hospital remains a definite curiosity of Houston's haunted history. There is status, though its status as an organized set of residential units does not make it a prime ghost haunting real estate as it might once have been. That does not make it any less of a paranormal hotspot that it was when it was once abandoned. Some say that the dead are often made more active by the energy of the living, and that people once again living on its land might again disturb the slumber of those long buried. After all, there still remains many bodies buried in its land. Disturbing. Well, that one sounds pretty good. Excuse me, pretty good. Should go check that out if you have a chance, ladies and gents. All right, our next story. All right, our next story is the the Millermore Mansion in Dallas, Texas. Situated in the Salute Old City Park neighborhood of Dallas, Texas, the Millermore Mansion is the architectural horror movie house. Antiquated and numerous and extremely haunted. The manor the manor was originally constructed in 1861, making it as old as the American Civil War. Having been relocated from its original property, the mansion now sits on the entrance of the old city park, a neighborhood dedicated to providing Dallas's history and home to the city's largest collection of Victorian pioneer homes. The Massive Creek Rivalry Revival home is complete with porch, a balcony, and four grand big columns supporting its second story. Millermore was once home to the family of the wealthy plantation owners who spared no expense in the ensuring of building their home, afford the offered the height of luxury and class. For most as long as the or for almost as long as the mansion has been around, the residents of Dallas have spread rumors about what goes on within these walls. Even in life, the original owners were said to be standoffish, reclusive, and altogether strange. According to the visitors, volunteers of the mansion, the owners have kept up their strange habits from beyond the grave, and eventually do not take kindly to visitors. If you think you're brave enough for a tour of this place, go do it. Okay, here's the history and some of the background. By the time the first drums of the Civil War beat on the Millermore family, that they had moved into the home that would see its bitter end. Unwittingly, they had constructed a home on the back of an institution on the brink of obsolescence. To this day, the mansion remains the largest historic mansion in the city of Dallas, as well as the most striking reminder of its place in the war that divided America. The home's first owner was William Brown Miller, moved to Texas from Kentucky in 1847. Miller's presiding home was a log cabin on a hill overlooking Dallas. Although there wasn't much to look at this time, shortly after moving, Miller quickly gained prominence as one of the wealthiest cotton planters, stock risers, and slave owners in the American South. Miller also owned a variety of serving operations on the Trinity River in North Texas. The money from the Miller's enterprise ventures quickly began to burn a hole in his pocket, and in 1855 he set out to do something about it. Plans for the Miller's upgrade residence were drawn up that year, and construction shortly began. Miller built his dream home using lumber from cedar and post oak trees, cut by hand and drawn by oxen to the site. The process took 7 years in total. When complete, the home afforded a luxury level comfort and privacy not found in most cabins of its time. The mansion also features wide central hallways flanked by squirrely structured rooms, allowing cool breezes to reach the inner rooms and somewhat make up for the lack of air conditioning. By this time, Miller had also purchased 7,500 acres of the surrounding land for cultivation and livestock, furthering increasing his home's sensitivity of privacy or isolation, depending on how you look at it. While living in the mansion, Miller married, divorced, and remarried a total of 3 times. Minerva, his second wife, as well as Emma, his third, each lived out their final days inside the house. Minerva is thought to have succumbed or came to illness, while Emma is rumored to have died in childbirth. After the family had all died or moved out, the property remained unclaimed for decades. By the mid 20th century, the once great Miller Mansion was in shambles. Its sadly legacy soon garnered the attention of the founders of the Garden Club, a women's group that sought to preserve Dallas's history. But Millermore's location quickly proved to be an issue, as commentary as development in this area threatened its disconstruction. To ensure its protection, the club dismantled the home and temporarily moved it into storage. By 1966, the group had raised enough funds to purchase a lot of land in Old City Park to serve as haven for the historic Dallas homes known as the Dallas Heritage Village. To this day, the Millermore Mansion remains the oldest, most beautiful of this, and according to many, the most haunted. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but have y'all noticed everything I read is this is the most haunted place in such and such? Every one of them. Although the care decided to preserving the home's exterior, the interior of the Millermore Mansion remains almost all intact. Thanks to the ladies of the founders of the Garden Club, everything is exactly as it was in 1861. From the antique furniture to the portraits of Minerva Miller that seem to follow visitors wherever they go. Many of these visitors have claimed that the ghost of Minerva Miller herself remains within the walls of the mansion. Guests overwhelmingly report feeling the strange, unnecessary sensation of being watched near the nursery and master bedroom of the house. Some also reported feeling the temperatures drop considerably in these areas, even in the height of summer. This observation is made even more unsettling by the fact that centralized air conditioning has never been added to its house. Oh my God, that's pretty cool. Throughout the years, the mansion has hosted numerous teams of paranormal investigators eager to go inside its dark history. Experts who have studied the infamous haunted mansion believe that the trauma that occurred in the master bedroom and the nursery led to an extreme haunting in these areas. According to the reports by the historians, both Manavera and Emma Miller died in the master bedroom, while the spirit of Emma's stillborn child excuse me, is likely gravitated to the nursery. A A long-term tour guide of the mansion reports a periodically spine-tingling encounter at the mansion that seems to confirm this. According to her report, she had just finished giving a tour and was preparing to leave when she heard a strange, streaking sound coming from the upstairs, almost like a crying of an infant. The woman felt a child run up her spine, or a chill. I'm sorry. The woman felt a child run up her spine. What the fuck? the woman felt a chill run up her spine. She had heard stories about the ghostly haunting Millermore, but had never experienced anything for herself until now. Not wanting to investigate alone, the employee enlisted the help of a much larger male employee. In the pair headed upstairs together. As they went up the stairs, the demonic shrieks grew louder and louder, and the larger male tour guide clung to his jacket in fright. So they had reached the top of these stairs. The woman reached with shaking hands for the door. She drew it open, and all at once the shrieking ceased. But when they approached the antique wooden crib, they found it empty. Puzzled, the pair headed back downstairs, but nearly as soon as they reached the second floor, the shrieking started up again. Too exhausted, the two exchanged a look, but before they could head back upstairs, the unearthly screams were followed by a second sound, as a heavy object were being dragged across the floor. Without hesitating, the two rushed upstairs to further their investigation. When they reached the nursery, the crib was gone, leaving behind it a trail of scratches on the wooden floor, almost as if it had been dragged. The trail led directly into the master bedroom, where the crib now stood. The crib now stood by the bed. The male tour guide reached to move the crib, but his friend stopped him. "Leave it," she said, and he obeyed. By the time the two returned downstairs, the crying had stopped altogether. After the incident, the employees of the mansion opted to keep the crib inside the master bedroom, and all reports of shrieking infants had stopped. Now, that's pretty creepy. That's like that mother's ghost was like, or the baby was crying to be with the mom, I guess. That's crazy. Excuse me. Other reports of strange happenings at Millermore, however, have not one security guard working at the mansion recounts an even more hair-raising tale. According to that story, the guard stood outside the mansion one evening when he heard something smack against the master bedroom window. The guard walked around back to see what it was, found a large black crow lying in the grass. Stunned by the impact, he was so raptured by the strangeness of it that he failed to notice a second crow crashed into the same window, followed by another, and then another. The birds landed around him in a flurry of feathers, cawing and shrieking madly. When the man looked up to the window, he swore he saw a pale white face watching him. Although with its face, security has also reportedly spotted strange lights moving back and forth between the master bedroom and the nursery at night. That's the ghost of the mother checking on the baby, probably. The orbs in a strange pale green color and seem to pulsate with a power all of their own. Whenever the guards venture upstairs to investigate, the lights mysteriously vanish. Today, the Millermore Mansion remains the oldest, most beautiful historic home in all Dallas, and according to many, the most haunted. So if you think you ever are brave enough to encounter the undead, infants, or scandalous crows, then go by and check out the Millermore Mansion. That one seems pretty damn spooky. But you gotta take it though, the land that the house was on. In time, Dallas has grew, so that land was probably getting purchased by the city, houses being built, and it was just sitting there in disarray, and it got moved and then put back together again. So with all that kind of remodeling and stuff like that, man, it just bet you that spurred up some of them ghosts. But I don't get that though. People build a big house like that and just leave it abandoned and stuff. I don't get it. And I am going to warn you, biggest reason I didn't record last night, guys, because this is tornado season. And we are experiencing a lot of bad weather right now. That's why I didn't record last night. We had some thunderstorms come in. And I don't like recording when there's thunderstorms. And it's starting to rain again. But I think we're going to be okay. But if you hear any loud stuff in the background, it's just the thunder and stuff. It's Texas, man. We live in the Tornado Alley. All right. That was a good story. All right. Let's go to our next one. So hope I don't screw this one up. Preido La Baha in Goliad, Texas. Not Goliad, I don't think, but Goliad or something like that. All right. Although the name dates back to a fort built on the ruins of a French fort in 1721, the fort was built at its present location in 1747. By 1771, the fort had been rebuilt in stone and was the only Spanish fortress on the Gulf Coast between the Rio Grande and the Mississippi. The civilization town, not surprisingly called Goliad. Oh, it is Goliad. I'm sorry. This place is in Goliad. Anyways, Goliad began to become populated in the later quarter of the 18th century. By the 19th century, it was one of the 3 import sites. What was then known as Spanish Texas, and one of only 2 schools. In 1810, the Mexican War of Independence from Spain began. The Mexicans invaded Texas and captured the fort in February 1883. It wasn't returned until the remaining Texas territories were liberated by the Spanish army by the summer of that year. And in 1821, the fort was captured again, this time by Americans angry over the treaty between Spain and the United States, which gave Texas to Spain, but only for 4 days. By the end of 1921, Mexico had achieved its independence from Spain and absorbed Texas. I bet you they mean 1821. Because there's no way it's 1921. We was already a fucking part of the United States by then. In October of 1835, the Texas Revolution began between the colonists and the Mexican government. On October 10th, Anglo-American volunteers attacked the fort. They forced the Mexicans to surrender, or the Mexican army to surrender, after yelling out they would slaughter everyone if they did not surrender now. In early 1836, the Mexican army entered Texas to put an end to the revolution. After the more famous fort, the Alamo, fell, the Texans retreated from the Presidio under the orders of General Sam Houston. The Mexican army overtook them, forced them to surrender, and forced them back to the Presidio fort. On March 27th of 1836, the Texas prisoners of war, between 425 and 445 of them, were executed by the Mexican army under orders from the President of Mexico. This began known as the Goliad Massacre. The bodies were piled up outside the fort and burned. They were left for the vultures until the remaining Texans army found them a few months later and gave them a military funeral. In the 1960s, $1 million was donated to rebuild the fort and bring it back to its former glory as a Spanish fort. It is now a public museum and is owned by the Catholic Church. Here are some of the paranormal activities. And the pictures of this place look freaking amazing. I would love to go visit it. Check it out on the old Google there. It's a beautiful looking place. I love the architect. Just a nice old stone fort. Okay, but here's some of the ghost activity. The ghost of Colonel James Fannin is seen in the courtyard where he is sitting in a chair, blindfolded and ready for his execution. Those who have witnessed its apparitions say the air gets very cold and they feel a chill up and down their spine. Fannin is also seen in the old officers' quarters, where the phantom footsteps and cannon fire often were heard when his ghost appears. Most of these soldiers were murdered in the Godwrangle, and the majority of the paranormal activity is focused here. People have reported smelling decaying flesh, a smell so strong that the local vultures flock in to look for a meal. That's crazy that the vultures even fall for it. But it's like I said, when something bad like this happens on some land or a building, I notice it scars it and it stays there forever. Phantom blood also appears on the walls. In the courtyard, a woman in white is seen. Legend says that she is looking for a lost grave. The chapel, Our Lady of Loreto, is also reported as being very paranormal, activity with multiple ghosts. A woman in black is seen holding a burning candle, apparently mourning someone. Mourning someone. Now that's weird. I've never seen or covered a story where there's a black figure ghost and a black shadow figure ghost and a lady in white. Never seen that twice. A robed monk is also seen in the chapel. There are reports of there being numerous other ghosts in the chapel. When the chapel is empty, people have heard the organ playing, a woman's choir, a bell ringing, and babies crying. Others report activity of disembodied voices, electrical disturbances, code spots, time slips, and the feeling of not being alone. So if you're ever around Goliad, go check out that place. It sounds pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, let's get on with our next story. All right, our next story is Lake Highlands High School in Dallas, Texas. When Joe Rosenweg started teaching at the Lakeside High School, a group of students came to him and asked him if he knew about Elizabeth. And he said, Who is Elizabeth? And then the new drama teacher heard about the ghost that haunts the high school theater and auditorium. I can't tell you that I have ever seen her, says Joel. He is starting his fifth year at the school. But some of the kids have claimed to have seen her. And there have been some things happening that the kids say she does. Lights going on and off for no apparent reason. Props moving without anybody actually having them moved. Code spots. And in the feeling of like someone's watching you while you're on stage performing. I mean, that sounds kind of dumb because you're on a stage, like people are watching you, but they say you get like there's something over your shoulder just watching you. Elizabeth is well known among students. In fact, that Brad Bell made a movie entitled Ghostlight about her last year. Bell says he became interested by the story after talking to one of the students. Technical directors as a sophomore. He was very skeptical. He is a very skeptical person who said, after working here for however many years, I'm completely convinced that there's something here, says Bell, now a college student in Los Angeles who plans to study filmmaking. And he wasn't even the type of person to believe in such a thing. And while Bell says he has never seen any dramatic proof of Elizabeth, he adds, I have had very close sources that I trust tell me weird things like doors with hydraulics stop and they will slam shut. You know them doors with the hydraulic door or arms on them? They're like on top of the doors. That keeps the door from slamming back. It slows real gently. Well, apparently this ghost can slam them. Elizabeth isn't the only ghost demanding attention around here. There's the White Rock Lake, the Lady of the Lake. And I think I've covered that story. I think that's the one where she's the hitchhiker. She gets in the car. They go to the residence, and she's not in the back of the car, but a wet spot is. A nationally known spirit who has ghost hunters and paranormal researchers from around the country coming to see her. But she is far from the only haunting that's part of town. As Elizabeth would attest, how about the Comanches of Flagpole Hill, survivors of a settlers' massacre who are said to roam the hill, still throwing rocks at the attackers, are the two sets of ghosts who supposedly haunted the former Ola Parada shopping center. One can occur that, I need to remember that Flagpole Hill massacre. I like looking up stuff like that. Maybe there's some ghost. All right. One can occur that there is nothing more than legends. The byproducts of overreacting teenagers and pranksters are witnesses who have over diluted what they seen. Perhaps, but go back through newspaper clippings, interview older residents in their and there are plenty of stories dating to the early decades of the last century, both here and elsewhere in Dallas. Two spirits witnesses claim still haunt Old City Park south of downtown. A pioneer family has been wandering up and down Preston Road, Northwest Highway, and a Parochi Interle or and a prop and a Propaho. Sorry if I messed that name up. Trying to get back to their farm. There are the two ghosts seen regularly at Snuffers. When I started researching my book, I really did not expect to find too much in the way of ghost stories. After all, Dallas is a city of chrome and steel. How could it be haunted? But there is a rich history of ghosts here. Ghosts that are worth exploring. A ghostly business, which a surprising number of people due to ghosts may not be a high margin business, but there are steady one. There are almost half a dozen paranormal research groups in and around Dallas that visit cemeteries. They stake out haunted houses and investigate supernatural claims. And that does not include dozens of books, websites, newspapers, magazines, etc. of the hauntings and what and where. Okay, the person who runs the DFW Paranormal Research of North Texas has investigated the Lady of the Lake and the Flagpole Hill phenomena. We keep busy. Some of that stuff is obviously an urban legend, but some of the others, there may be something there. This outlook may seem a bit silly in the first years of the 21st century. After all, there are scientifically explanations for occurrences that people as recently as a couple of 100 years ago would have seen the ghost. Oh, sorry. All right. Okay, now here's the Elizabeth story, I guess. The Elizabeth story has certainly sparked the imagination of Lake Highlands High School of the students through the years. She is said to have attended Lake Highlands High School in the early 70s. A pale brunette with long hair, dressed in white, perhaps in some sort of pleasant blouse or skirt. She was a senior the year she supposedly killed herself. Climbing up the roof in the theater, past the lighting grid, through the escape hatch, into the crawl space, and out to the roof. Bell shows the suicide quite vividly in Ghostlight. That's that movie that the guy made about Elizabeth. I need to go check that out, though. Ghostlight. The legend is she killed herself in school in 1974. She says, adding that most kids don't actually believe in Elizabeth, but some of the legend people do believe anyway. All right, here are some of the facts about Elizabeth. So, was there an Elizabeth? The answer is unclear. Students have searched school yearbooks from that era, and there does not seem to be a student named Elizabeth, let alone who jumped from the roof and killed herself. Bell says his research tells him that even some spirit named Elizabeth does not exist. Something or someone else does. It is kind of hard to deny that something is not going on, he says, laughing into the rapid fire report of his things he's been told. If you talk to anyone of the janitors or any security guards, they'll tell you something's going on. Excuse me. There's one woman who won't go into the area underneath the stage to clean because she's scared. We asked a security guard what he thought, and he said he won't go into the cafeteria. Says he sees shadows in there when nothing is there. I have heard that people have seen police dogs come out of the building with their tail between their legs. One janitor claimed to have seen a woman in what appears to be a Victorian dress walking around without a head. I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous, he says, but these people have fear in their eyes when they're telling me these things. And I don't blame them. They've been at this school at 3 o'clock in the morning and had something like that happen. And he's right, because it's difficult to argue with eyewitnesses. One official even gets a little huffy when someone questions the existence of her spirit or wonders why the facts in so many of these stories seem to be changing. I could hear screams I could hear a scream that was actually the most blood-curdling scream. A woman named Phyllis Thompson was sitting on a dock by the lake, told the newspaper, describing the run-in with the lady of the white. In conclusion, this guy thinks that, he's not for sure about the Elizabeth because he really can't find any records, but talking to the eyewitnesses and looking at their reports, it's really hard to say that there's nothing going on there. So like this guy said, he couldn't find out too much about Elizabeth, but the eyewitness reports and the eyewitness reports and the people like being honest about what they're saying. So he's not counting out that there's nothing there. Sorry, I'm writing something down so I don't forget about it. See, I didn't know about the flagship place, so I'm going to have to cover that. Or Flagpole Hill. Cool. And then Ghost Light. Got to remember that movie, guys. Ghost Light. Supposedly, some guy from that school made it. Okay. Now we're going to do our last story of the day. Okay, our last story of the day, guys. I hope you're ready. All right. The Jefferson Hotel in Jefferson, Texas. The most haunted hotel in Texas. Near the banks of the Big Cypress Bayou, a hop, skip, a hop, skip, and jump from the Louisiana border. The Jefferson Hotel was offered a distant hospital for over 100 years, and its quite early Victorian structure has stood for 50 more years. Has stood for 50 more. The many ages and ownership changes of the property have left their subtitle marks beneath the preserved period decor, and handwritten records overflow with guest sightings of at least 5 separate entities from the beyond. The new proprietors have assumed stewardship of an once dissembling history, treasures, and restoring it with a keen eye for the precision and renounce. The diverse array of antiques, and alongside the themed rooms and decor, enhances the charm of its elegant figure in the realm of the supernatural. Here is the history of the hotel. In 1850, Jefferson was one of the most developed cities in Texas, second only to Galveston, thanks to the newly charted steamboat routes along the bayou for traders working along the Mississippi and its tributaries. Jefferson was the westernmost port that could be reached without transferring their goods from boat to rail. The building, now known as the Jefferson Hotel, was built in 1851 as a warehouse to support the exploding cotton industry. The Jefferson Hotel has seen its fair share of unexplainable, but unlike many alleged haunted locals, where stories are passed from one guest or employees to another, changing a little each time. The staff on the Jefferson have taken care to record as many encounters as possible in its time. During its last years of operation, the Book of the Dead was kept behind the front desk, in which guests were encouraged to write down their details of the many contacts with the hotel spirits. So they've always had a book there. You could write down your experiences of what happened and stuff. The brave and the curious were often permitted to check volumes of the book out for bedtime reading. While there are many reported specters of the Jefferson Hotel, some of the most commonly cited are a pair of children of about 7 years old, a boy in knee-length breeches, and a girl in a pinafore. There are believed to be, casualties of the building's days as a cotton warehouse. But in spite of their laborious lives and untimely deaths, there are now some of the hotel's most high-spirited inhabitants, often heard laughing and chasing each other through the halls. Uh-oh. Yeah, I messed up. Where was I at? Okay, Book of the Dead. Okay, and then I read the report specter. Oh, this is that was the first ghost, the Mill children. That's what they called them. Hold on to your eyes and valuables and vicinity of the Jefferson Hotel. The Mill children love to play with small objects and pull pranks on guests, moving possessions around and turning lights on and off. Now we're going to talk about the Vanishing Man. Little is known or even suspected about who this man might be, but numerous reports have been described a tall male figure in a long coat and high boots who comes and goes as he pleases. Though he makes no threatening moves, some guests have found him unsightly present, sitting or standing in their rooms throughout the night. That would be some creepy shit. However, he is his apparently the hotel's most solid and hard to miss apparition. Some guests have even reported following him down a hall, thinking him to be another live guest, only to watch him vanish and he turns into one of the rooms. That would be some crazy stuff to experience. I would probably scream like a girl. Now we're going to talk about Judy's Mirror. In room 19 is a periodically violent hotspot of paranormal activity, part of which seems to be connected with the connected with the spirit of a teenage girl. Though records of the hotel's history has a bordello, it had a history of being a bordello or understandably spotty. The girl is thought to be a prostitute who was stabbed by a client and left to die slowly in the room's bathtub. She now appears in the midst of hot showers and leaves messages on the room. Its 19 bathroom mirror. Oh, wait a minute. It's not. Okay, she now appears in the midst of hot showers and leaves messages on the rooms 19. That's the room number 19. It leaves messages on the mirror. Sometimes the words seem to be warnings. Other times, unclear whether she's introducing herself or calling out to some long-gone friend or coworker. The next one is Libby in White. This is the last little story of the Jefferson Hotel. The beautiful young woman appears most often to male guests traveling alone, and she can be recognized by her bridal gown, golden hair, and feet that never touch the ground. Though she's been seen all over the property, Libby mainly seems to haunt a specific bed rather than a location, following it around through the multiple remodels. Experts and staff members disagree on its spirit exactly intently, though most likely suspects are an Elizabeth or a Leda who stayed in the hotel almost 50 years apart from each other. Both women were jilted on their wedding days, which means they were left at the altar, and both were likely pregnant at the time, and both supposedly hung themselves from the bed's unusual tall headboard. Libby in the bed have inhabited room 12 and 14, and even room 19 at different times. You can only hope that she and Judy have found some positive things to comfort each other's company. Whatever both their true names may be. So no one knows what them ghost names really are. They just know they're there. They see them all the time. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope I didn't stutter too much and sound like a ding dong. Oh, man, it's just one of them days where it's just cloudy and cold and rainy. I mean, it's not like freezing cold, but it's a little chilly. But sorry for being late again. But like I said, we've had storms coming in and it's been kind of crazy. But with me saying that, I want to say thank you again, guys, for the 200th episode. I can't wait to do celebrate 250 and number 300 and 350 and 400 with you guys. I appreciate you. I love you. Thanks for the love, guys. But I'm going to go get out of here. You have a great afternoon. We will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. All right, guys. We'll see you later, ma'am. Have a good one and be scary.